What's up, everybody? I'm Scott Melker, and this is the Wolf of Wall Street's podcast, where 2 times every week I talk to your favorite personalities from the worlds of Bitcoin, finance, music, art, trading, sports, basically anyone with a good story to tell. Now, one of the biggest narratives in crypto has been the explosion of layer one and layer two protocols over the past few years, largely because people argue that Ethereum is far too slow and expensive for the everyday person to use. Well, luckily, we have people like today's guest, Sandeep Nailwal, who is the co-founder of Polygon, formerly, of course, known as Matic to those of us who have been around for quite a while, who are solving those problems in real time and basically making Ethereum usable. So we're going to talk about that, the proliferation of layer twos, the solutions that we're going to see in the future to bring Bitcoin, crypto, layer ones, layer twos, all of it to scale when we have, of course, 1 billion people using this in the very near future. Sandeep, thank you so much for joining.
Thank you so much, Scott, for having me here.
So listen, as I touched on in the intro, we've seen this absolute explosion of protocols, largely because of the issues I think that people are seeing with Ethereum. So why create a layer two to improve on Ethereum and not just create your own layer one and compete?
Yeah, so I think like the layer ones are inherently unscalable. Like any layer one which is selling you that they can scale blockchains and have user interactions on the layer one, I think they are not, either they don't understand blockchains properly or they are being honest enough. Like I'm very clear on that, right? I mean, because, basically it's like, Vitalik mentioned it very nicely in that, scalability trilemma, right? Like out of scalability, security and decentralization, you can only choose two of them, right? And you can't not choose security, right? You need to have security. So then either of scalability or decentralization, you have to choose one more, right? And then any layer one which is saying that they are slightly more scalable than Ethereum, they end up choosing scale over decentralization. And any layer one which is trying to do, let's say, larger amount of transactions on layer one, they are either not able to fulfill that promise, or they are extremely centralized, or at least they are built in a way which will make sure that they will never get decentralized enough. And I think the people can guess which protocols I'm talking about here without naming the names. So so we are very clear on that the layer one can never scale. Now our thesis of Web3 is that the whole space is going to evolve in a way where Ethereum or one particular layer one, and we strongly believe that 99.99999% it's Ethereum with its network effects and like the way Ethereum, ETH as an asset, how ETH has evolved, how the Ethereum network has evolved as a decentralized protocol, how the Ethereum community has evolved, so that people like us are fighting for Ethereum like the way it is our own protocol, right? So Ethereum has a very, very big advantage, and we don't see any other layer one becoming that. And we believe that this layer one, Ethereum, has become the settlement layer of this network of value. See, we are building this network of value here, and Ethereum has become the settlement layer. And the user activity will never be on layer one. User activity will always happen on these layer twos. Who knows, like layer three, layer four kind of.
That was my next question.
Yes. So we are very clear on that, and that's why layer two, not a layer one, because that does not make sense.
Right. My next question was going to be, okay, we all agree that layer ones can't scale, or at least we do, right? And that's something that I've said for a very long time. The people who obviously are running them will tell you that they can scale to 1 billion users, but we all know that if they can't even handle the transaction volume now, that they're not going to be able to do that at scale. So are layer twos enough? Like, what if we have 2 billion people using crypto or 3 billion people using crypto? Are we really talking about then you have layer twos, effectively layer threes, like a layer two for Polygon? And then how does it work? Or do we get multiple layer twos that are all settling back on Ethereum?
Yes. So you will have this web of like this settlement layer, and then you will have multiple layer twos and this is our thesis, like nobody knows how it's going to evolve, but you will have this set of layer twos, right, which settle into Ethereum. And, there can be hundreds of such layer twos, like with Ethereum, scaling, let's say when Ethereum goes into into this proof of stake mode, there will be some level of scalability. Then eventually, let's say 3 to 5 years, when we go into full blown what do you call, like a sharded Ethereum, where it has 64 shards, then this scalability increases even further. And technically Ethereum should be able to host hundreds or thousands of these layer 2s on top of it, where this user activity will happen. If and ideally, if blockchains achieve internet level scale, especially the zero knowledge based layer 2s, they should be theoretically be able to support highly secured layer 3s also, which can be, many of the times these layer 2 layer 3s will be application specific. So if you are Citibank, you might be running your own layer 3, which is, or layer 2, which is fully run by you only, and you are just settling those proofs back on Ethereum. So that's where we believe that the scale should come, and it looks very reasonable also, that this is how it should grow.
So to be clear, it's your belief that no layer 1 ever can scale to full mainstream adoption just because of the inherent structure of how they are. So it's always, no matter how far we get along in the technology, it's always going to be dependent on layer 2s being built on top of it.
Yeah, no doubt that layer 1, are inherently unscalable, and layer 2 and further layers of secured scaling is the way to go.
You talked about zero knowledge proofs. You brought them up. A lot of ZK people will see ZK snarks, all these sort of different catchphrases for what it is. What does that look like, and how does that make the layer 1s faster and make this more scalable?
So with zero knowledge proofs, basically zero knowledge rollups. Let's first talk about zero knowledge rollups, right? So with zero knowledge rollups, the power of zero knowledge cryptography, and I'm keeping it extremely, simple, in terms of the parlance, not getting into the technical details, but the way zero knowledge technology is built, or zero knowledge cryptography is built, is that, once a particular ZK circuit, which is expected to have a certain kind of logic, has been deployed on Ethereum, and eventually people are putting proofs back on Ethereum, there is no way that the operator of this zero knowledge rollup can do fraudulent activity on that and still be able to put up valid enough proof. Compare this to optimistic rollups. In optimistic rollups, the operator can actually put a fraudulent checkpoint or proof, but that's why optimistic rollups have something called fraud proofs. Fraud proofs means that, and that's why these are called optimistic, where you optimistically assume that the transactions are right, but if something goes wrong, then you have fraud proofs. And that's why optimistic rollups have 7-day withdrawal period. Why? Right. Because you're optimistically assuming everything is right. And if something is wrong, you need to give ample time to people or to the community to challenge it, right? With ZK rollup, that is not a possibility at all, because ZK rollups use validity proofs. If the proof has been submitted on Ethereum, then, and it has been accepted, that means that is a valid proof, and there is no way that any fraudulent activity has been done. That's why on ZK rollups, the withdrawal periods can be as less as 10 minutes, or even less if the rollup is actually putting the transactions, this thing. So that's one part, right? So withdrawal periods and everything is small and all that. But one key benefit that ZK rollups, also offer, is because the validators cannot do any kind of fraudulent activity with the ZK proof. What you can do is, you don't need to submit the data back on Ethereum. With optimistic rollups, you have to do both the things, because you are expecting that some proof can happen. So you have to put the proofs as well as the data back on Ethereum, so that if something is wrong, you can match it with the data. With zero knowledge, because those fraudulent proofs cannot be submitted at all, you don't need the data on layer 1. You just can put that data in a layer 2 or kind of other data availability layer, right? So the moment you do that, now you can have 10,000 transactions or 1,000 transactions in the ZK rollup, and these are called validiums, right? Like, this is a new flavor of ZK rollup, which is validium, where off-chain data availability and proofs on Ethereum. So then, if you have, let's say this rollup becomes popular enough, then you can have 10,000 or 100 or 1,000 transactions, put one proof back on it on ZK, and you don't need to put the data. You just put the data somewhere else. So the cost of putting the proof back on Ethereum does not grow linearly. In case of optimistic rollup, when you are putting the proof, you have to put the data also. So if the data is increasing, you are putting 100 transactions, 500,000 transactions, the data also keeps increasing linearly. But with ZK rollup, you just have to put one proof, which is standard, like stable, like in terms of its cost,
and tiny.
Not tiny. ZK proof are still like fairly heavy. I would say that they will be gas intensive, but you have a fixed cost for the proof, and then the data can go. You can use an off-chain data availability layer, which can be very cheap, and you can dump all the data over there. So that's why the cost can be very low over there.
So it sounds like it's very fair to say we're still really early in figuring this out, right? I mean, this is all that if we want 1 billion people, keep kind of coming back to that we're going to keep needing to innovate and find new solutions and improve on all these things. I mean, even you guys, of course, you're faster, cheaper than Ethereum, but you've even had moments where you had gas fees rise and slower transactions, right? I remember the sunflower farmers example, right? Could you talk about what happened there? And for you guys, obviously, who are always generally have been faster and cheaper, how that stopped for that temporary amount of time.
Correct. So two things, like before that, on the ZK side, as you were saying that, like if you ask me, ZK technology is going at such a fast rate that, if you ask the same question to me 12 months back, I would say, yes, it's still not been figured out. But in the last 12 months, and even we are surprised, to be honest. Like recently, we had our monthly reviews with especially the Hermes team, and as per them and the improvement that we see, we actually now thinking of preponing some of our launches, because some of the breakthroughs that have been done are actually moving at a very fast pace. So that's one part. Second part is that before we get into the sunflower situation, we have to see, and for people who have done some sort of technical programming and all that, or even normally, you would understand that, in early 2000s, before this cloud came and all that, when you had a small website, you always kept it in a shared server. Shared server was that one server was running 100 small websites, because each of them has less traffic. So you can actually rent that, shared server. And once your website started growing beyond a particular, user base, then you actually move it into a dedicated server. Now, if you see blockchains today, like these composable blockchains that are their public blockchains, these are all akin to shared servers, where you have these servers which are shared. That means these chains which are shared, and there are 10,000 applications on that chain, which is true for, let's say, Ethereum also. Like some days, like some airdrop is happening, and the gas
goes crazy. Right, one NFT release can freeze the whole chain.
Because the reason is same, because you are having this much capacity, and 100 people or 1,000 applications are using it. If one of them starts becoming big on a particular day, then it will consume all the resources. That is exactly what happened with Sunflower also. And in that case, there was one more thing that they did wrongly, and that's why, they had to take down their application. They took down their game. What they did is, and Polygon blockchain worked as it is expected, as it was expected to run. So they designed the game mechanics or their token mechanics in a way where you can do one transaction, and let's say the gas fees you want to pay $2, but in that, doing that 2-cent transaction, you can get 5 cents of that token, right? So it becomes a profitable trade, right? So then what you do, you run a bot and you keep doing
over and over transactions, right?
Over and over, till the time you mine so many tokens that that token, and you dump those tokens into the market. Some bot people did that, and then at one point in time, the price of the token became so much suppressed that doing this transaction at 2 cents did not make much sense. Then that activity subsided, and they also realized that they had built the game mechanics in a wrong way. That's why they took out the game, and then now they are building an improved version of it, which will have better game mechanics in that sense.
Right, but like if you have a rent, obviously you don't control necessarily any blockchain, like what's being launched, right? So what if 5 humongously popular NFT projects all decide to launch on the same day without communicating with each other. I'm not talking about this inherently to you, but on any blockchain.
No. Any shared blockchain, this is bound to happen. But one more interesting thing, even though if the sun farm, even the gas fees increased, even then the gas fees was 5 to 10 cents. Right? 10 cents means in $1 you can do 10. Still vastly small gas fees, I would say, on Polygon. Right. So even that if that happens,
yeah,
like
if you're talking about it on Ethereum, you're like, I was paying 50 and now I'm paying 1,000, right? I mean, it's a vastly different comparison. So it's a percentage gain, but it's still a minimal gas fee, almost nothing.
Yeah. That's the power of layer twos. Like even if some of those layer twos will get extremely congested, then the gas fees ideally should not be that high, especially if you are going to build like these ZK rollups, right? So Validium specifically.
So listen, I've been following Polygon Matic forever. I'm an early investor. I've been holding the token forever. You guys have not had the easiest path, right? Obviously, before the rebrand, you had that massive move to the upside, and then it felt like it was in a day, maybe it's roughly 70% dump, right? And I mean, a lot of people, I think sentiment was that you were left for dead, that it was a pump and dump. There was some sort of scam. Obviously, now we talk about you guys raising $500 million from Sequoia and Mark Cuban. It's got to be the craziest trajectory of any project, basically, in crypto. How does that all happen?
Yeah, I mean, at that point, like I think that was that was a very painful point for us, because we at that point also, like you have been watching Polygon team. We have always focused on fundamentals, that how much adoption is coming on Polygon, what kind of solutions we are building and everything. And that point in time, it was like such a big shock and a sad time for us, wherein like we are working this hard and suddenly we lost a lot of credibility. Like if you see, Scott, at that point in time, this was like 2019, and we were still in fairly deep bear market, right? And only one, like Matic as a coin, like altcoin was loved by the market. Like, it was one of the only few things which used to be very much sort of had some community love going on for it. And suddenly that happened, and we were like, I mean, that was one of the biggest blows. But immediately when that happened, and once I woke up and saw, oh, this has happened, and then we reached out to Binance, and CZ posted that this is not Polygon, somebody else would have done it and all that. And then we also posted. Immediately I told to the team that we are doing something very big. Our problems are also going to be big, so don't worry, we'll sort it out. And after that, like, I think the revival journey from there, like, which took us probably one more year from there, like December 12 to December 2020, end of 2020, from December 2020 2019 to 2020, like that 1 year, we did so much hard work on all the fronts. Like, I mean, actually now if you see, that was kind of a blessing in disguise, because because nothing of Polygon. And I think you also posted that Polygon, like the whole crypto Twitter was sleeping on Matic. Like a lot of people used to say this, because
I even bought it after that. I bought it after that 70% dip and waited. Like I didn't think it was dead, right? I'd follow you guys forever. I bought it. Yeah.
Yeah. So I think that event or incident actually made us work so hard for next 1 year, so that we accumulated so much of fundamental value, that when the community finally with the, I think in November, when the Trump election happened and Polymarket application absolutely blew off, and then Vitalik also started talking about it and all that, and then we did the rebrand and enhanced our vision and all that. And then the explosion that happened is also like one of the craziest explosion in the crypto space. I think we did like 200x or something like that, without like a straight 6 months, like it happened.
Hockey stick. Yeah, it's crazy. I've enjoyed every second of that personally as an investor. But I don't even know how to necessarily pose this question, but that situation and seeing that trajectory kind of makes you question the relationship between a project's fundamental value, what they're building, and how the coin can just be absolutely destroyed by trading and leverage. And it wasn't even actually being traded with leverage at that point, I don't think. I think that was a spot-driven incident, right? I mean, someone just
That
sold
was a leverage. That was a
It was.
leverage driven incident. Yes, yes,
Yeah.
yes. I think
So, but like, so how do you, right? You have your community, you're building this thing that's could be a earth-changing, world-changing technology, but then you have to worry about what traders are doing with it.
But see, like, which other industry also, you have to see that which other industry you get to go, public on day zero, right? Like, there you have to go, seed round, private round, this, that, and then, after 10 years you go public. Here you are able to go to public, start getting your community involved from day zero. And then you have this token treasury. Like, let's say if you are day zero, you are 200 million valuation and 50% of tokens is for community. Then you have 100 million dollars in tokens to be distributed to the community to acquire more and more users, to acquire more and more traction. So there are benefits to this.
You have aligned incentives, right? Of course. Yeah. It's better. It's just, it's definitely a better system. I don't think there's any question that
it's very painful and hard, but it's worth it. Like it's worth the pain. And I mean, both the traditional startup journey is also good. And I think in crypto, we are seeing like a, kind of a mix and match of these two things. Now, if you see the most successful products or tokens are those where they have a product and, it already has users and all that. And now then they launch their token with airdrop and, like all those things to the users. And then the token comes and those tokens end up doing very well in the market, right? So I think we are reaching at an equilibrium point slowly and steadily where good projects will be slightly better. But of course, there will be, this has like a casino. There will be some, like shitcoin kind of projects will also keep coming. But the point being that, but as you said, that there is a dissonance between the fundamentals of a project and the value of the token. I think it is actually on both sides. Like on the upward side also, sometimes you see some projects who have nothing and they have like $2-3 billion valuation. And sadly it's on the downside, I mean the other direction also. So I think it's a part and parcel of the
it works both ways. And I think it's an evolution of the way that projects or companies are able to raise funds. It's obviously better, your average person can participate as opposed to being locked out where only the rich and accredited investors can be a part of it. But speaking of rich and accredited investors, you guys, had a $450 million investment led by Sequoia, which I mentioned before. Mark Cuban is a huge fan and investor. How did that happen?
So, I mean, see, with most of these, investors, actually, I would say that was very easy to do. The reason for that is like many of these guys, like for example, Mark Cuban himself uses Polygon pretty extensively.
Yeah,
his platform like lazy.com is also built on Polygon. And, there are many things like that. Like today, the scene is that the VCs, when they are talking to the teams, 6 or 7 out of 10 times a team approaches them and they ask them, where are you building a product? They end up saying that they are building on Polygon, right? Yeah. And then, many or 3 or 4 times it's exclusive on Polygon. And then other 2 times it's like, they are multi-chain, but Polygon is a part of their configuration, right? So the thing that I'm trying to say is that many of these investors, they already knew about the traction of Polygon, right? So it was not that difficult for us, to be honest. In fact, if we wanted to and we had kept going, we could raise like 650, 700 million, whatever.
We've seen that. Yeah. It's crazy.
But, like we had to say no beyond a certain time. We wanted to keep it only to a certain extent. Yeah.
I mean, it's crazy when you watch what's happening in the VC space with Web3. I mean, it's like someone's like, I'm going to raise 500 million. And then they're like, oh, they raised 900 because they were oversubscribed. I mean, everybody wants to get their money into Web3 in some way, shape, or form, right? So like, as you touched on, it almost feels like you're choosing your investor and saying no to people in this space rather than going out and trying to roadshow and raise money and find money. It's a unique, cool position to kind of be in.
Absolutely. Yeah. It's absolutely crazy in here.
Yeah. So we're talking about getting to full scale. Like we all love the idea DeFi could replace the global financial system, NFTs of the future, metaverse, gaming. That requires billions of people using these. We already talked about the fact that none of the layer ones can scale. How robust how many layer twos, how many layer threes? Are they all going to be built by you, or you're going to have 99 competitors and there'll be 100 of you and you'll be just one of them? What does that look like when we get to billions of users? What does this ecosystem look like?
I mean, see, the Polygon's thesis is this only, right? We are a multi-chain layer two, right from the get-go, right? And that too, not only multi-chain, but multi-approach. That's why, like, we are not building one ZK rollup, we are building 4 different ZK rollup. One of them is enterprise with the, Ernst & Young, but Polygon, Hermes, Zero, and Maiden. These 3 are different flavors of ZK rollups. Similarly, we are building a data availability chain. We are also building Polygon Edge, which is a competitor to, let's say, Polkadot Substrate or Cosmos SDK, right? Where you can launch your own chains. So we want to be present across the spectrum for the scaling of this settlement layer that we talked, which is Ethereum. And the idea is that Polygon itself should have hundreds of chains, if not thousands, in the coming few years.
Man, I don't know how you guys much bigger brains than me is all I could say. It's almost impossible to envision at scale if I think you're not deep down in the weeds. It's just
I mean,
crazy.
the number of applications, like the whole world wants to come to Web3. I mean, 1 year back when we had our first 10 applications, I was thinking that how do we go to 50 applications? Then we went to 30 and 40 applications, and I was thinking, okay, how do we go to 100 applications? And then suddenly, like in 1 month, we went from 30 to 100, and then from 100 to 500, and then within 6 to 8 months, 9 months, we went to 5,000 applications. Today, as per Alchemy and Infura, we have, like, Polygon has more than 10,000 applications. So the scale, when it comes, it comes slowly, but then once it, like hockey stick growth, like picks up on a particular technology, it's crazy. So, we can't even imagine how many, users are going to come here if, let's say, a big, let's say, who knows, if a big game brings in tens of millions of users, or something like Facebook or Instagram comes on, on blockchains, and suddenly bring in, hundreds of thousands or millions of users into blockchains.
Right. I mean, talk about going from 50 to 100, 1,000, all the way to 50,000. Is there a point where that breaks, where it's just too many? Or is it just you find solutions as it scales?
See, that's why you need horizontal scaling. Like, if you have one chain where all of the users are there, it will break. But if you have tens of such chains which are interacting with Ethereum, and Ethereum is ultra stable, right? Then, you can have distributed, scaling over there. So if you see, Polygon is nothing but a horizontal sharding, ecosystem, all of them connecting to Ethereum. If you see, what is Ethereum 2.0? There is a beacon chain, and then there are 64 shards. Think of it, Polygon in that direction. It's Ethereum, which is the beacon chain, and then you have hundreds of these rollups or layer twos or side chains or whatever it is on top of Ethereum.
Love it. So the one thing we haven't talked about yet, which maybe should be considered your greatest accomplishment, believe it or not, is crypto relief. Can you talk a bit about that? It's absolutely huge. You've raised a massive amount of money to help people around the world. Can you talk about what that is and why you did that?
So, I mean, this was in April 2021 when the Delta variant hit India very badly. And, I mean, everybody around us was getting COVID positive. And then, I mean, I don't know even a single person who doesn't know some friend or some family member or some extended family member who did not perish in that whole wave. And, same with me also, like, I also got the COVID, and my family, my grandma, my parents got COVID and all that. And, I was in a kind of, that's the time I went into kind of a belligerent mode where I screw this virus, I mean, not only I'm going to fight and help fight my family out of it, but also fight my country out of it. So that's when, I made a simple tweet, I made a simple multi-sig wallet and tweeted that, I want to, I will take the responsibility of transparency and everything, because this money is going into India, and India is very, generally not very welcoming to crypto. And that blew up, absolutely, I mean, in first 24 hours, we got $1 million. And then, probably in the first week, we got $10 million donation, mostly coming from Vitalik. And then Vitalik donated that, $1 billion of Shiba coin. He thought that it would be like, in actuality, 10 to 15 million dollars. But the way it played out, Shiba Inu community also helped, Polygon, like helped this ecosystem a lot. And they were like, many of them were very positive. They took it very positively. Generally, retail communities, Scott, we know that
Which is crazy because for people who don't know, I mean, Shib basically blindly sent these coins to Vitalik's public wallet. And he sold them and sent them to Relief in India. They viewed it as a token burn, and he actually sold them, or some of them.
Yeah, so I mean, but the way Shiba Inu community overall took it so positively that, okay, we were thinking, like, I saw so many tweets that we were thinking that we are participating in some meme coin, but we are actually now Shiba will be used to do some actual good. So people took it positively, and that's the community spirit, I think, in crypto, which sets it apart from any other industry in the world.
But didn't you have to send Vitalik back a huge part of his donation? And why was that?
I mean, in total we got like $470 million. And we had deployed, even till now, we had deployed like $75 million. And Vitalik and me keep discussing that, how can we put this money even in a more faster mode into India and all that. And because I, being an Indian citizen, it can be extremely, regulatory wise, I'm saying it can be extremely challenging for me because we all know, like, most of the scams in the world, I mean, in India also, like, it's very prevalent that a lot of the non-profit NGOs and all that end up doing shady things, right?
Of course,
and
everywhere.
Already I'm getting this money from crypto, and if I'm being careless and I deploy this money very, very fast into some NGOs and this reaches wrong hands, even one single case, even though I deployed $100 million, even $10,000 lands in wrong hands, and the whole barrage of regulatory scrutiny can come to me, right? So I told Vitalik that, I mean, I can't deploy this, like, extremely fast as you might expect, but you being an external citizen,
you can,
you can donate it to India and nobody can touch you, right? So it's much better you take this 100 million back. So we still, the ecosystem fund, the crypto relief fund still has 100 million or $300 million with it. And we are doing like big things, like setting up a hospital and a virology institute in India, and so many big things that we are doing in India with that money.
It's incredible to see the community come together. We're seeing the same thing in Ukraine, right? And in Canada. I mean, yours was kind of the first huge example of this, but when all else fails, we're seeing crypto easily get through to people and helping them on the ground in terrible situations. I mean, isn't that the whole point?
I think Bitcoin is establishing its kind of utility as like an unstoppable currency. Especially with this Russia situation, I'm hearing that all this buying right now that is coming from these some of these Russia or related countries around, that they are like not trusting their local currency at all, and buying in droves Bitcoin. So I think it's very interesting to see. And the similar thing happened after the COVID, the March 2020 this thing also, it is kind of becoming a hedge against the fiat currency, and that dream is coming true slowly.
So before we finish, should people still be fearful of India banning or coming down in some manner heavy-handedly on crypto? Because that's obviously one of our back and forth narratives.
Yeah, not banning. I don't think India is going to ban crypto all right, completely. But definitely, they are going to impose a lot of regulation, a lot of reporting requirements and everything, to make initially, at least, like for the average individuals to get into crypto, make it very difficult. But I mean, I'm totally I totally understand where government is coming from, because India has this huge history of being cash dominant economy, where there's a rampant black marketing and all that, like black money and all that is there. And these recent governments have done a lot of good work to bring information technology and bring things to the books. And suddenly you introduce crypto and boom, like everything, all your systems have no value, no kind of control and all that. So they will keep doing this stuff until they figure out the model that they need to interact with crypto. But I think one big problem that governments will need to understand, and I think in it will take time, but in coming years they will, they will soon reach a realization point where they will start realizing that this crypto actually not only disrupts money, but it also is going to disrupt governments completely, right? And that's going to be one another big kind of change that needs to be seen in coming decade or so, because
I think we're starting to see it.
But it kind of takes out the biggest thing that government controls, which is the currency, because using that they also get into taxation and all that. So if they lose monetary control, and trackability with these privacy technologies coming in and all that, then how do they control fiscal policies? And once that goes off the window, then only two things that remain with them, which is infrastructure building and security. And I think infrastructure building also of the part of the government can also be kind of privatized. I think a lot of capitalist countries have that, like they have privatized infrastructure providers. So that also is not really a government's task. So only the security will remain as the main task of government. Everything else, will move into. So crypto has a potential to disrupt everything else. So, we are in for a ride for next 10, 20 years. It could be a very different world.
I was going to say, the moral of the story, concluding the conversation here, is that it's going to be a crazy decade, and we have a lot to look forward to as all of this sort of scales and becomes adopted. So where can everybody follow you after this conversation and keep up with what's happening at Polygon?
I am you can follow 0x Polygon, our main handle, from where most of the things are broadcasted by the community. And then I am available at @Sandeep Nailwal, my full name, on Twitter.
Thank you so much for doing this. As I said before we even started recording, this was long overdue. We've been trying to get this on the books for a long time. I'm glad we finally got to have this conversation. I look forward to doing it again, maybe, I don't know, a year down the road, because I have a feeling it'll look completely different again.
Yes. Let's make sure that it looks completely different, as you said again. Yeah. Thanks, Scott, for always, being supportive of Polygon. And then thank you so much for having me here.
My pleasure.